This audiobook explores the mysterious yet deeply personal ways the universe communicates with us. It helps the listener stop missing the signs they've been praying for and shows them how to tune in with clarity, discernment, and courage. When signs speak louder than words. Introduction. We've all whispered it, maybe through tears, maybe through clenched hope. Just give me a sign. A signal, a confirmation, something, anything to prove that the universe is listening, that our prayers didn't vanish into the dark, that we're not walking blindly through chaos with no cosmic compass. But here's the truth most people never hear. You didn't miss the sign. You misunderstood what a sign is. A sign isn't always flashing neon or written in perfect timing. Sometimes it's quiet, ordinary. It slips in through the cracks when you're not looking, disguised as a gut feeling, a canceled meeting, a song lyric, a stranger's words, or a door that slammed shut right before your breakthrough. This audiobook is not about superstition or magical thinking. It's about discernment. It's about tuning your internal frequency to hear what's always been speaking to you. It's about realizing the signs didn't stop showing up. You just stopped trusting your ability to read them. This isn't just an audiobook. It's the answer to the question you've been too afraid to admit you've been asking. Does the universe still see me? Yes, it does. And it's speaking. This audiobook will help you hear it. Chapter 1. The Unseen Language of the Universe. Long before anything shows up in your life, before the breakthrough, before the opportunity, before the shift you've been praying for, the universe has already spoken, not in words, not in signs painted on the sky, but in language older than language, the kind that bypasses logic and lands somewhere deeper, inside the quiet of your being. This chapter is about that language. It doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It doesn't convince you. It simply is. And it waits for you to recognize it. The universe doesn't speak English, or Spanish, or any human dialect. It speaks in energy, in resonance, in frequency. And if you're waiting for your answer to arrive in neatly packaged instructions, you may miss it entirely. Because most of the time, your answer already arrived. It just came in a form you didn't expect. A restlessness, a gut feeling, a knowing that made no sense, but wouldn't leave you alone. We're trained to ignore these signals. We're taught to look for proof, evidence, logic. We become addicted to confirmation and blind to the current. But here's the truth. Life moves before it makes sense. There's a law beneath all other laws, the law of alignment. And alignment is not something you wait for. It's something you tune into. It's a state of being that recognizes what I desire isn't coming. It's already communicating with me. Not through coincidence, but through coherence. When your energy matches the message, you don't need to chase it. You begin to feel it. Every emotion you have is a form of communication. Every repeated thought, every tightness in the chest, every pull toward or away is information. And the universe? It's constantly responding to your internal atmosphere. We often miss this because we've grown used to noise. Our lives are loud. Our minds are louder. Scrolling, comparing, planning, fearing, overthinking. In that sea of noise, the nudges become faint whispers, and whispers are easy to ignore. But you weren't made for noise. You were designed to perceive nuance, to sense the invisible threads that connect thought to outcome, belief to reality. Your body picks up on what your intellect can't. Your spirit registers alignment long before your five senses do. The mystics have always known this. Neville Goddard said, "You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are." Meaning the real signal you send out isn't your wish list, it's your identity. Your state of being is your communication with the universe, and it responds not to what you ask, but to what you embody. Dr. Joe Dispenza explains this through the science of coherence. When the heart and brain sync, when your inner state matches the frequency of your desired future. He shows that real change doesn't happen through effort alone, but through energetic congruence. So if you feel like your life isn't moving, ask yourself, is it stuck? Or is it speaking? Because the moment you begin to observe your reality differently, the language begins to shift. You'll notice the right people show up, right when you stop chasing. You'll overhear a conversation that answers your question, right after surrendering the worry. You'll have a dream, a delay, a sudden cancellation. And if you're paying attention, you'll realize that was the message, not an obstacle, a direction. The universe doesn't waste time explaining. It simply shows. But to see it, you must become quieter than the world around you, still enough to notice, present enough to interpret. That's the key difference between noise and nudges. Noise feels chaotic. It pushes you, pressures you, distracts you. Nudges feel persistent, but peaceful. They return. They repeat. They remain, even when they make no logical sense. Learn to recognize the nudge. It may sound like, this isn't where you belong anymore. You're not waiting. You're avoiding. It's not too late to become someone else. And when you hear that nudge, respond, not with a plan, but with presence. You don't need to decode every message. You just need to honor the feeling. Trust opens the door to deeper understanding. The unseen language of the universe is not about getting what you want. It's about becoming who you're meant to be, so the things meant for you can recognize you when they arrive. Because that's the real magic, when your inner world and outer world begin to speak the same language. The question isn't, is the universe speaking? It's, am I quiet enough to hear? Your alignment is the antenna. Your attention is the translator, and your embodiment is the message sent back. The universe doesn't speak in noise, it speaks in knowing. Chapter 2. You've already received the sign. The universe is not withholding signs. It's not playing hide and seek with your destiny. In truth, you've already received what you're asking for, just not in the package you expected. Not because the message isn't there, but because your filters won't let it in. We don't suffer from a lack of divine communication. We suffer from spiritual static, layers of doubt, fear, and overanalysis that cloud our perception and block the transmission. As we explored in Chapter 1, the universe speaks in a language deeper than words, through energy, nudges, and resonance. But here's the catch. If your internal atmosphere is full of fear, noise, and second-guessing, you'll distort the very message meant for you. Imagine tuning into a radio station. The signal is strong, the music is playing, but your receiver is filled with static. The problem isn't the station, it's your reception. And this is how most people live, constantly praying for answers while unknowingly rejecting them. They ask for clarity and dismiss every subtle sign because it doesn't fit their logic. They seek direction and then override their intuition with fear. They want change, but they resist the very nudge that would start it. Why? Because we've been conditioned to trust fear more than flow. To believe that struggle is noble, that discomfort must mean danger. And worst of all, that clarity comes first. But as we'll explore more deeply in later chapters, clarity often follows movement. And movement requires trust. Let's look at what these filters really are. The filter of fear. Fear narrows your vision. It turns every opportunity into a threat, every delay into a rejection, every unknown into a warning. When you're afraid, you don't see possibilities. You see risks. So when the universe whispers, "Go this way," fear shouts back, "What if it's the wrong way?" And so you stay still, stuck. The filter of overthinking. The mind loves to complicate what the heart already knows. You receive a nudge, a knowing, an inner prompting. But instead of trusting it, you dissect it. Was that really a sign? Maybe I'm just imagining it. What if I get it wrong? And just like that, the moment passes. You don't move. You don't trust. And the universe appears silent, when really, you talked over it. The filter of expectation. We all have an idea of how our sign should look. We imagine a dream job coming with a golden invitation. We expect love to arrive wrapped in certainty. We want the message to be loud, unmistakable, foolproof. But signs often come clothed in the ordinary. An overheard phrase. A book that appears twice in 1 week. A sudden delay that saves you from a bigger loss. Miss it, and you'll spend years asking for a sign that already came and went. Take, for example, a relationship that didn't work. Jenna prayed for clarity about a man she was dating. She asked the universe, "Is he the one?" What she missed? A subtle feeling of anxiety before every date. The way she couldn't be fully herself around him. A dream she had 3 nights in a row, where she was walking alone. But Jenna didn't listen. She wanted a billboard, not a boundary. Years later, after a painful breakup, she said, "Looking back, I always knew. I just didn't want it to be true." In another missed opportunity, David kept feeling drawn to start a side business. He'd get ideas in the shower. Random people mentioned similar ventures. He saw signs on social media, in conversations, even from old journals he forgot about. But he hesitated. What if I fail? What if I'm not ready? 2 years later, someone else launched the same concept and found success. What happened? David received the sign. He just didn't recognize it as a sign because it didn't come with a guarantee. And this brings us to a powerful truth. The universe doesn't confirm your desire with certainty. It confirms it with resonance. And if you're only listening for certainty, you'll miss the way your own heart is trying to lead you. But here's the hope. You can train your perception. You can clear the static. You can tune in again. Start by asking, what signs did I ignore because they didn't look the way I expected? What messages have I been calling coincidence because I wasn't ready to act? What nudges keep returning, quiet, consistent, and impossible to shake? Because those are the ones that matter. They are your alignment calling you forward. And the more you trust them, the clearer they become. As Neville Goddard once said, your assumptions harden into fact. Meaning, you don't wait for proof. You live in the feeling of your answer already received. And in that space, signs are no longer rare. They're everywhere. The sign isn't missing. You've already received it. But to hear it, you must lower the volume of your fear. To see it, you must surrender your need for control. And to trust it, you must let go of the belief that it has to make perfect sense before you follow. The path doesn't begin with clarity. It begins with courage. Chapter 3. Inner Knowing. The first signal. Before the universe sends signs through the external world, through people, events, coincidences, or delays, it whispers to you internally. That whisper is inner knowing, not loud, not logical, not something you can always explain. But it's real. It's a felt sense, a vibration of clarity, a nudge from somewhere deeper than your thoughts. And while the world trains you to chase information, your transformation begins when you learn to trust this inner signal. You've felt it before. The instant pull toward something new. The hesitation you ignored, but later regretted. The peace that made no sense, but settled into your bones like truth. That's not guesswork. That's guidance. And it often arrives before the outer world gives you confirmation. The role of intuition and resonance. Intuition isn't magic. It's not some mysterious gift reserved for the few. It's your native compass, your soul's language, the tuning fork inside you that vibrates when something is aligned or out of alignment. Before a person lies to you, you feel it. Before a deal goes wrong, your body tightens. Before an opportunity opens, you're already curious, drawn, connected. This is not imagination. It's resonance. Everything in the universe vibrates. And when your internal vibration, your beliefs, your frequency, your heart is aligned with something external, you feel it before you see it. You don't need evidence to trust resonance. In fact, if you wait for proof, you're already late. The universe moves at the speed of awareness, not explanation. But here's the challenge. We've been trained to override this knowing, to ask others what we already sense, to delay decisions until logic gives permission, to mistrust the yes we feel because we can't explain why. And so, we become strangers to our own soul's voice. Why inner dissonance is often the universe saying no. Just as resonance feels like a quiet but clear yes, dissonance is the body's alarm. But unlike fear, which is often noisy and reactive, dissonance is still. It doesn't scream. It doesn't flail. It quietly pulls your energy inward. It feels like tension, tightness, or tiredness around a decision or direction. Have you ever walked into a room and felt your energy shrink? Started a conversation and immediately wanted to escape? Agreed to something and felt off before you even began? That's dissonance. It's the universe using your inner signal to redirect you. But again, we don't always listen. Why? Because dissonance doesn't come with a reason. It just is. And we're conditioned to believe that if we can't justify it, we can't trust it. So we stay in friendships that drain us. We take jobs that our gut said no to. We say yes to things we should have left behind. And then we wonder why we feel scattered, anxious, or lost. But here's the truth. Every time you ignore your inner no, you silence your ability to hear the next yes. The more you override that signal, the more muffled your guidance becomes. You don't lose intuition. You just stop recognizing its voice. Rebuilding trust with your inner yes. The good news is that inner knowing is never gone. It doesn't hold grudges. It doesn't abandon you for doubting it. But it does require reconnection. And that begins by practicing presence. You can't hear the whisper if your mind is shouting. Here are ways to rebuild your relationship with inner knowing. 1. Feel before you think. When faced with a decision, pause. Before listing pros and cons, check your body. Do you feel expansive or contracted? Light or heavy? Calm or chaotic? The body often knows before the mind does. Resonance feels like ease, even if it's uncomfortable. Dissonance feels like effort, even if it looks good on paper. 2. Stop outsourcing your knowing. It's okay to seek wise counsel, but if you're always asking others what you should do, you've forgotten that you do know. Your first instinct is usually the truest one, because it's not filtered through fear yet. Ask yourself before you ask anyone else. 3. Track the times you were right. Look back on moments when you felt something and didn't listen, not to shame yourself, but to remember you did know. Write them down. Then look at times you did listen and what it led to. This trains your brain to trust what your soul already trusts. 4. Create quiet. Your inner guidance is subtle. It doesn't compete with noise. Meditation, walks in nature, journaling, all of these create space for the signal to rise. The more room you give it, the louder it becomes. In Chapter 2, we uncovered how the universe isn't silent. We're just often misaligned in our perception. But here in Chapter 3, we take that deeper. The first sign is not external at all. It's inner resonance. You don't need the universe to scream. You just need to stop shouting over the whisper. And as you begin to rebuild this connection, you'll realize that inner knowing was never absent, only buried beneath layers of noise, doubt, and delay. You don't find truth. You remember it. And once you start honoring your inner yes, the universe doesn't just guide you, it mirrors you. Because what you agree with inside becomes the blueprint for what unfolds outside. Chapter 4. Mirrored Reality. How life reflects your frequency. The universe doesn't send emails, it sends echoes. Your life is not a random collection of events strung together by accident. It's a mirror. And every reflection, every person you meet, every repeated pattern, every frustrating loop is not punishment. It's communication. The external world reflects the internal world, not to shame you, but to show you, to teach you, to guide you home. In the previous chapter, we explored intuition as the first whisper of divine guidance. Now we step into the second echo, your reality. The events of your life are not separate from your state of being. They are the consequence of it. Let's begin with the mirrors we often resist. People. The ones who trigger you, the ones who lift you, the ones who confuse you. Every person is a sacred echo. When someone's presence makes you feel small, it might be reflecting an old wound, still unhealed. When someone constantly pushes your boundaries, it might reveal your fear of saying no. When someone inspires you deeply, they might be a mirror of the version of you you've buried or are becoming. But what happens when the same kind of person keeps showing up? The same heartbreak, the same betrayal, the same abandonment. That's not a coincidence. That's the curriculum. That's the universe showing you the frequency you're living on, so you can rise above it, not repeat it. Patterns are not curses. They are signals. If you find yourself saying, "Why does this always happen to me?" Pause. That's not the universe being cruel. That's the universe being consistent. It keeps giving you the same lesson until you master the frequency behind it, not as punishment, but as practice. And then there are symbols, numbers, words, songs, animal encounters, even dreams. Many people call these synchronicities, and they are, but they are only useful if interpreted with clarity and humility. A repeated number sequence, for example, is not a fortune cookie. It's an invitation to become aware. What were you just thinking about when it appeared? What emotional state were you in? What decision were you avoiding? This is the art of interpretation without superstition. Because when we get overly mystical, we lose groundedness. But when we dismiss everything as mere coincidence, we lose connection. You don't need to decode every cloud or second-guess every encounter. Instead, feel into your body. Is it contracting or expanding? That's the only language that matters. The body never lies. And the truth it tells you will often reflect what the universe is already showing externally. Take, for example, a season where everything seems to break down. Relationships, finances, health. It may feel like life is attacking you. But what if it's actually aligning you? What if the external chaos is mirroring an inner call for realignment? This is the shift from superstition to sovereignty. You begin to realize the world is not happening to you. It's happening through you. When you're bitter inside, your reality will start to look bitter. When you're full of resentment, The world will reflect enemies and unfairness. But when you begin to forgive, not just others, but yourself, suddenly life softens. The world opens, and the same external place becomes a different landscape altogether. This is not magic. This is frequency. Everything emits a signal, and your beliefs, emotions, and expectations shape that signal. That's what life responds to. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. And until you understand the mirror, you'll keep wiping the glass instead of cleaning the source. That's why inner work is not optional. It's essential. It's not just self-care. It's self-alignment. When you align internally, life aligns externally. Not instantly, but inevitably. And when it does, you begin to trust. You stop forcing and start flowing. You no longer demand signs from the universe. You start seeing them. Because now you understand. They were always there. You just weren't ready to see. This prepares us for the next chapter. Chapter 5. Stop waiting, start listening. Because once you've seen the mirror, the next question is, what will you do with what's reflected? The universe doesn't speak in future tense. It speaks in now. And the next message waits inside your movement. Chapter 5. Stop waiting. Start listening. We wait for a sign, for confirmation, for the clouds to part and the universe to shout, now is the time. But here's the hard truth. The universe has already spoken. Most people don't suffer from a lack of signs. They suffer from hesitation masked as seeking. We stall under the guise of wanting clarity, when what we're doing is avoiding responsibility for the next step. Waiting can feel spiritual, but in many cases, it's just well-disguised fear. We say we're waiting on God, waiting on the universe, and waiting for alignment, but sometimes waiting becomes a trap, a stall pattern, a delay tactic our mind uses because we fear failure more than stagnation. And yet, action is often the clearest message. The myth of perfect clarity. Many believe clarity is something that strikes like lightning, sudden, electric, undeniable. But most often, clarity is revealed through movement, through decision, through the doing, not the thinking. You don't get the complete picture before you take the first step. You get the picture by walking forward, and each footstep unveils more of the path. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest. You're told there's a trail, but you can't see it until you take the first few steps. That's how life works. That's how the universe whispers, move, and I will meet you. You are the missing step. The sign you're waiting for might actually be you. The step you're avoiding might be the signal you're asking for. In Chapter 4, we explored how reality mirrors our internal state. Chapter 5 continues that by showing that movement isn't just an effect of alignment. It is often the catalyst for alignment. When you move, the universe moves with you. But waiting for a feeling of readiness before acting is like waiting to feel warm before lighting a fire. Action births clarity. Action invites confirmation. Listening looks like doing. Spiritual listening is not passive. It doesn't mean sitting still and hoping the answer arrives in a dream. It means being attentive in motion, It means walking through the fog and trusting that the path will reveal itself. What if the thing you're avoiding, the phone call, the email, the new habit, the boundary, the ending, is the thing you've already been guided toward? What if you've already received the instruction, but dismissed it because it didn't look dramatic enough to feel divine? Sometimes, the divine whisper doesn't come from above. It rises from within, through resistance. Resistance is often direction. Think of this. Why does a certain idea keep tugging at you? Why does the thought of doing that one thing cause tension? Not because it's wrong, but because it's charged with energy, with transformation, with potential. The universe often speaks through resistance. It marks the path of growth with emotional heat. We avoid the very actions that hold our breakthrough, then blame the universe for not guiding us. Let's reframe it. That discomfort might be the signal. That thing you keep pushing aside might be the breadcrumb you're supposed to follow. Take, for example, the writer who keeps waiting to feel inspired instead of writing through the block, not realizing that flow often comes after the first paragraph. Or the person who's been praying for connection, but avoids going to social events, not realizing the answer requires their presence. And the entrepreneur asking for a sign to start, while endlessly researching but never launching, not realizing the sign is in their obsession. In each case, clarity wasn't missing, movement was. The universe moves with you. This is the law beneath the waiting. Movement creates momentum. The universe is not stationary, it's participatory. It responds to energy, not excuses. When you step forward, even uncertainly, the field adjusts. People appear. Opportunities shift. New resources emerge. Not because you waited for the right moment, but because you made the moment right by showing up. This is what makes listening an active practice. You stop waiting. You start listening, not just with your ears, but with your feet. In Chapter 6, we'll explore how to discern whether something is truly a sign from the universe or just your mind grasping for patterns. But before we get there, remember this. You were never meant to wait endlessly. You were meant to walk boldly, not because you're certain, but because you're willing. The step you're avoiding might be the answer you've been praying for. Chapter 6. Synchronicity or coincidence. Learning to discern. Not every flicker in the wind is a whisper from the divine. Not every repeated number is a personal prophecy. In an age where signs are trending, discernment is rare. We're flooded with interpretations, flooded with opinions, flooded with meaning. But what if some things are just things? This chapter is not meant to strip magic from life. In fact, it's here to preserve it, because magic loses its wonder when it's cheapened. When every cloud is a message and every glance is a soul contract, we stop listening to the deeper, quieter voice within. The true voice of guidance doesn't scream. It doesn't compete. It waits. And it requires maturity to recognize. We've all been there, seeing the same number over and over again, hearing a song at the perfect time, running into someone we were just thinking about. Some of these moments are divine nudges. Some are echoes of alignment. But some are simply the brain's reticular activating system doing what it does best, noticing patterns based on what's already on your mind. The difference between synchronicity and coincidence lies not in the event, but in the resonance. Let's go deeper. The brain is wired for meaning. The human brain is a meaning-making machine. It's constantly scanning the world, trying to make sense of chaos. It searches for patterns because patterns feel safe. Predictability gives the illusion of control. However, not everything that seems patterned is significant. Psychologists call this apophenia, the tendency to perceive connections and meaning between unrelated things. It's why people see faces in clouds or hear hidden messages in music played backward. It's not that you're wrong to notice. It's just that not everything you notice is meant to guide your path. This is why discernment is spiritual maturity in motion. It's the capacity to pause and ask, is this truly for me? Or am I projecting meaning into this moment because I need reassurance? From magical thinking to spiritual wisdom. Magical thinking is seductive. It gives us a sense of control cloaked in mystery, but it's often rooted in fear. When you're desperate for direction, everything starts to look like a roadmap. The danger? You become more loyal to the sign than to your soul. Real synchronicity doesn't make you frantic. It calms you. It doesn't manipulate you into action. It nudges you toward alignment. It doesn't make you dependent. It empowers your discernment. Spiritual maturity means knowing the difference between being led and being lured. One brings peace. The other breeds confusion. A sign resonates, not just repeats. You don't recognize a true sign just because it shows up multiple times. You recognize it because it speaks in a frequency your soul remembers. It aligns with your inner knowing. It confirms, not controls. Ask yourself, does this bring clarity or cause anxiety? Is it repeating because it's true, or because I keep feeding it my attention? Is the message consistent with the direction my spirit is already being called toward? A true sign echoes what you already sensed. It's not the instruction. It's the confirmation. The danger of chasing signs. The moment you start chasing signs, you stop listening, because chasing implies fear. It implies you don't trust that the right message will find you in the right moment. Remember, the universe doesn't withhold clarity as a punishment. It withholds it as protection until you're ready to feel, not just follow. Signs are not meant to replace your intuition. They're meant to support it. If you're ignoring your own inner knowing while searching the sky for symbols, you've missed the most important message of all. Your soul was never mute. Discernment. Questions. If you want to develop spiritual maturity and discern real synchronicity from projection, use questions like these. Does this align with what I already feel deeply to be true? Would this still be meaningful if it hadn't appeared twice? Is my emotional reaction coming from a place of peace or panic? Am I surrendered or searching? Most of all, ask, would I be willing to move forward even without this sign? If the answer is yes, the sign is likely genuine, because it's no longer a crutch, it's a companion. Synchronicity honors timing. A real sign doesn't just appear, it arrives when it needs to. The timing is part of the message. Synchronicity often enters when you've already taken steps, when you've begun to move. It's the universe saying, yes, keep going. But if you're frozen in fear, waiting for the cosmos to send a billboard-sized yes, you may never get it. Because movement reveals meaning. Just like we discussed in the previous chapter, stop waiting, start listening. Often, the action is the sign. The clarity is in the motion. You don't get the message before the leap. You get it midair. Sacred silence is still guidance. Here's the paradox. The more you mature, the fewer external signs you may need. Not because the universe has gone silent, but because you've grown sensitive to its whisper. You've moved from confirmation to embodiment. This is when you realize silence is not the absence of direction. It's the presence of trust. It's not that the universe isn't speaking. It's that you've become fluent in its language. Discernment is not about skepticism. It's about sovereignty. You were never meant to be manipulated by signs. You were meant to be mirrored by them. Real synchronicity reflects the truth already stirring within you. When you stop needing signs to believe, that's when the clearest ones begin to show up. Because now, they're not arriving to convince you. They're arriving to celebrate you. And that, dear listener, is the turning point between magical thinking and spiritual knowing. Chapter 7. Prayers you forgot. You prayed. There are moments in life when everything seems to fall into place, and yet strangely, it feels unfamiliar. You may look around and wonder, why does this feel both new and strangely destined? Often, this is the moment when a long-forgotten prayer finally returns, wrapped in a form you never expected. Not a whisper from heaven, but a chapter of your own life unfolding before you, quietly answering a question you asked long ago. The universe has a memory. It doesn't forget your earnest moments, the midnight whispers, the tearful pleas, the fleeting thoughts soaked in longing. Even when you've moved on, distracted by life, or hardened by disappointment, your soul's desires don't vanish. They echo in the unseen, waiting for the right doorway to return. But here's the paradox. What we call unanswered is often just unrecognized. Because divine answers rarely come dressed as divine answers. They show up as detours, as delays, as breakups, the jobs you didn't get, as cities you were forced to leave. And if you're looking only for the version you imagined, you'll miss the one that's meant for your evolution. Many people assume their prayers are unheard simply because they didn't get the answer when or how they expected. But divine intelligence doesn't traffic in instant gratification. It moves according to preparation, not panic. There is a cosmic choreography to your becoming, and some answers are delayed not because you're unworthy, but because the you who asked is not yet the you who can carry what's coming. Think back to the time you asked for strength. Then everything fell apart so you could discover it. To the time you prayed for peace. Then toxic patterns rose to the surface to be healed. To the moment you asked for love, then were left alone to learn how to love yourself first. These aren't punishments. They're responses in disguise. Evolution wrapped in disruption. Grace cloaked in loss. The questions that shaped your current reality were often subtle. You may have never spoken them aloud, but the universe listens to energy, not just language. Your ache is a prayer. Your longing is a frequency, and your readiness isn't determined by desperation. It's measured by alignment. Sometimes, the only reason you can't see the answer is because you forgot the question. So revisit the questions that carried you through your darkest seasons. What did your younger self cry out for? What did you ask when no one else was around? What dream did you bury because you thought it was too much, too late, or too impossible? You might realize the life you're living is the answer. The people in your life now, the doors that have opened or closed, the inner strength you didn't know you had, all of it could be fulfillment you didn't recognize. It takes spiritual maturity to stop measuring answers by comfort. Sometimes, the most loving response from the universe is not a yes or a no, but a not yet. Not to torment you, but to temper you, to shape your container before pouring in the blessing, to deepen the desire so you can receive without sabotage. Desire needs depth to anchor itself. When you're shallow in desire, you're easily swayed by appearances. You give up quickly. You chase shiny things. But when you're deep, you don't need confirmation. You become the confirmation. You walk with quiet certainty, even when nothing seems to be working. So don't curse the delay. Don't resent the detour. Don't assume silence means abandonment. It may be the most sacred pause of your life, because while you're waiting, heaven is preparing. And in the waiting, you're not being ignored. You're being readied. So the next time you catch yourself doubting whether your prayers have been heard, ask yourself instead, have I become the version of me who can hold the answer? Because that's often what the wait is really about. And when you finally see it, when the answer shows up in a form you never predicted, there will be a moment of sacred remembering, a divine déjà vu, a flicker of recognition that says, "Oh, I asked for this," even if you had forgotten. Chapter 8. The Sign is You. You've spent most of your life looking for signs, divine hints, celestial nudges, quiet confirmations that you're on the right path. But what if you've been looking the wrong way? What if the sign is you? This chapter isn't just a twist in the narrative. It's the shift, the transition from asking, "What does this mean?" to becoming the meaning itself. From decoding the universe to embodying its code. When you become the message, the seeking ends. 1. You were never meant to only receive. You were meant to reflect. A mirror doesn't question the light. It reflects it. And so do you. You were not merely designed to detect the divine. You were designed to display it. Every time you trust your intuition, speak your truth. Choose peace over performance, or love when it's inconvenient. You become the very sign someone else is praying for. The universe does not only speak to you, it speaks through you. You are not just a receiver of guidance. You are its living channel. This is why the most profound messages don't come with flashing lights or prophetic dreams. They come clothed in skin. Your smile, your resilience, your quiet presence in chaos. You are the billboard. 2. From seeker to signal. There comes a point in your spiritual journey where the longing turns into living. You stop grasping for signs because you become grounded in source. You no longer say, "Universe, tell me what to do." You say, "Universe, show me how to be." And it responds, not by speaking louder, but by aligning everything around you to reflect what you've become within. This is the moment when your vibration precedes your voice, when your frequency enters the room before you do, when people sense something different and they don't know why, but you do. You've crossed from decoding the external to embodying the internal. You've stopped waiting for a word and started being the word. 3. Living as the answer. You don't have to be perfect to be the answer. You just have to be aligned. Your wounds, when healed, become road signs. Your journey, when walked with presence, becomes a path for others. Your life becomes the echo of the truth you once sought. Think of the people who've shifted your life. Was it their certainty that moved you, or their authenticity? Was it their divine perfection, or their human honesty? Your life, when lived from your soul, becomes scripture for someone else. Not because you preach, but because you are. Not because you instruct, but because you embody. 4. Stop asking for the sign. Start being one. When you realize this, everything changes. You stop overthinking your next move because your presence is the movement. You stop needing loud confirmation because your inner compass is calibrated. You stop fearing wrong turns because you trust that who you are becoming will guide you back. You live not to impress, but to express. Not to gather signs, but to give them. Every choice you make aligned with love is a sign. Every boundary you set aligned with truth is a sign. Every time you honor your inner voice over outer noise, that's a sign. A signal to others that it's possible, that it's real, that the unseen world speaks loudly through the seen. 5. When your life becomes a sign. The final transformation is not when you manifest the thing you wanted. It's when your life, your actual lived experience, becomes a beacon for others. You won't even notice it at first. Someone will message you and say, "I needed to hear that." Or someone will silently adjust their own path because of your presence. You won't even know the impact. And that's okay, because the truest signs don't announce themselves. They just are. So here's your invitation. Stop chasing the sign. Start embodying it. And remember, when you live in alignment, clarity follows. When you walk in truth, signs follow. And when you choose to live as the signal, the universe responds in kind, not with louder voices, but with deeper echoes. And those echoes sound a lot like you. Signs aren't rare. Readiness is. The closing loop of trust, surrender, and clarity. It's never about the signs. It's about the sight. The universe has never been silent. It's been speaking in sunsets and strangers, in closed doors and inner nudges, in gut feelings and repeated themes. But until we're ready to see, we'll walk right past burning bushes and whispering winds, calling them coincidence or just life. Readiness is the real miracle, not the sign, not the answer, but the soul that's finally still enough to recognize it. In this audiobook, we've explored the subtle language of the universe. We've walked through the quiet corridors of intuition, the mirrored walls of circumstance, the mysterious rhythm of divine timing. You've seen how signs aren't distant fireworks from above, but often the echo of your own energy. bouncing back to show you what you believe, what you expect, what you're becoming. You've been shown that delays are not denials, that your longing is not a flaw, but a map, that the no you feared might be the redirection you needed, and perhaps most importantly, that the answer is rarely louder than your resistance. So what now? Now, you practice stillness. Now, you trust movement. Now, you stop scanning the sky for signs and start honoring the one that lives inside you. Because your alignment, your frequency, your presence are the clearest sign the universe has ever sent. And just like that, you've closed the loop. From seeker to signal, from question to clarity, from "is the universe listening?" to "I've been the message all along." The truth is, you were never waiting for a sign. You were waiting to become one. So go live like a sign. Let your life speak without needing a voice. Let your choices reflect a trust deeper than fear. Let your presence be an invitation to others to wake up and see. And when someone asks how you knew which way to go, smile gently and say, "I didn't, but I listened anyway."